Welcome to the Racing Nuggets podcast. I'm PJ Noodleman, joined by my co-host, Mr. Dan Plan from the Midwest Racing Connection. Hey, Dan.
Hello, good to be here again.
Our guest tonight is none other than the Wisconsin Journal Sentinel writer, photographer, and big race fan, Mr. Dave Kallmann.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I wanted to ask you before we get too deep into this, because I know you do cover racing, but what was your first exposure to racing?
Holy cow. I'm going to guess that it goes back to when I was maybe 15-ish. Some friends were racing fans, and I grew up in Florence, which is in the northeast corner of the state. So I probably got dragged along to Norway. That would have been my first racing experience. And it wasn't like I was a fan or anything necessarily. I went along with, that's what we were doing. There's not a lot to do up there. So, if that's what your friends do, you go along. And it wasn't until, I got to the Sentinel. I was sophomore in college. Yeah, junior in college. And that, it came along as my first opportunity to write something, to get a byline in the Sentinel. And so that's, I jumped on that, man. I was 20, 21 years old. That's figure out this is what you're going to do. That's a great opportunity. And I did go away for a year and a half after my part-time days, came back in 1990, started on a Monday, and on Thursday I left for Indy 500 qualifying. So it was... kind of got thrown in the deep end, but it's been a fun 35 years. I thought, and this goes way beyond the question you just asked, but you got me babbling, so what the heck. I kind of realized early on that unlike most sports, you're pretty much always dealing with a winner. If you cover a team sport, 50% of the time, give or take, you're going to be around guys who don't really want to talk to you. They're not, they had a bad day. So in racing, you're always dealing with a winner. And then Earnhardt died. You know what I mean? And he went, oh, yeah, no, it's not always good days like that. Usually somebody has a good day. That one, not really anyone did. But by and large, man, you're always covering winners. It's a great sport. And they're great characters in this sport. So that's what's made it fun and interesting.
Were you actually at the Daytona 500 when Earnhardt died?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a strange, long day. Rooming with Todd Baling at some crappy little motel on the beach. He went as a fan. I went, did LTN in the morning and then went and sat in stands, whatever. Yeah, I covered the race and from the press box, and I guess didn't really think much of it until things started to drag on, and then went, ooh, this is not cool, and dug in and just started writing and kept writing and kept writing. And then, whatever the end of the day was, I can't tell you what the time was. Was it 9 o'clock? Was it 11 o'clock? Who knows? It all kind of ran together, and went back to that crappy motel and cracked open the one warm Corona that was left, and just sat there and kind of took in the day and went, wow, that's just been, one of the newsiest days in the history of the sport. Emotion, not until afterwards, you just kind of dial in and do your work, and then it hits you, much like when Kulwicki died. It was the same sort of, obviously I wasn't there, but it's the same sort of thing. You find out about it, you dig in, you write your butt off, and then it hits you afterwards.
You've chosen a very difficult occupation. Media is changed so much. What are some of the ways that you're trying to adapt and be able to stay afloat, because it's tough?
Oh yeah, it is right. The profession I'm in now, even though I haven't done anything really different, is not the profession that I signed up for. You know what I mean? Obviously 35 years. Yeah. A lot is going to change in just about any field you're in. But yeah, to try to stay relevant, to try to to hang on when so many of my peers have retired or found better, new and better things to do. I just I've always been I tried to be fairly flexible. I thought back in college at UWM, I thought the more different things I can do, the harder it is to get rid of me. If something goes away, I'll have something else. Honestly, my first full-time job was as a photographer. Got back to the Sentinel as a writer and copy editor, put down photography for, I don't know, 15 years, something like that. Did a lot of time, did a lot of time. Like it was a sentence, kind of was. As a page designer and doing that end of it. Lately, it's been more photography. That's I'm really glad I got back into that because it just makes me think in a whole different way. And the last year or so, I've kind of developed this niche as the guy who writes about just weird stuff. Just like we used to joke about third world sports, after your basketball, football, baseball kind of stuff, then there's a second tier with maybe your college basketball or with that sort of level. And then there's the third world sports, which, hey, auto racing fits in, it's a niche. It's not on the front of everybody's mind, but it's important to those who have it on top of mind. But beyond that, I mean, I've kind of gotten in the last couple of years, I've written about the Birkebeiner, which is cross country skiing. I've written about ski jumping. I've written about a couple of times about ski jumping, actually. Speed skating, just all kinds of weird third world sports. So that's been really, it's part of what's been fun about this is learning and meeting people and, getting to know their experiences and where they come from. And so I feel like I'm telling stories about people that readers don't necessarily know a lot about. So you may not care at all about the Birkebeiner, but if I can tell you the interesting story about the guy who's been in all 50 of them, who's, whatever, I forget how old Ernie St. Germain was, but, tell you his story and all the interesting things he can relate from over the years, then I feel like I've done an interesting job. And again, my mother also, she'd read something. She goes, the gist of it, what her comment was, I'd be interested in that even if you didn't write about it. You know what I mean? She was like, the topic got her. And
Yeah.
so that's how it kind of felt like I was doing my job. If I could get somebody to read and be interested in something that they wouldn't ordinarily care about. So yeah, just that's been a niche for me. I kind of jumped on the hockey stuff a little bit. Which now has me going over to Madison maybe once or twice a week for the college stuff. Indoor soccer, a little bit of helping out on high school stuff, a little bit of whatever needs to get done. I can jump in and do it. I guess my joke is that like there are a few people who know as little about as many things as I do. If that makes sense. I can't pretend to be an expert about any of this stuff, but I know a little, and these are all niches of audience that, it's easy to just wipe out completely things we cover. We could do as pretty much as well if we just covered the Packers and forgot about everything else. You know what I mean? Ton of interest there, but that's not really fair to readers. And so I'm happy that I'm able to give the rest of the people something they're interested in as well. It doesn't have to all be about the big things. And I feel like I kind of fill that niche of, giving something to people who may have, a little more obscure interests. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fun. It continues. That's what continues to make it fun, meeting new people and learning about new things.
You had mentioned earlier uh, getting to go to Indy when you first got into industry, and I would imagine back then you had to fax your results or something like that to get them back.
Wasn't quite wasn't quite that. We had those
But
little Radio Shack TRS 80s. The display showed you about 4 lines of type, and I think it might have had enough storage for 2 stories. And then when you went to do the notes, you had to blow away the your main story or something. Um, and they were sent over the phone with acoustic couplers. Like you took the handset of the phone. Remember when we had phones with handsets? You just stuck it in these 2 little things, suction cup type things, and that's how it transmitted. So you'd sit there and hold the thing for 5 minutes or whatever it took to get a story. And it was a little easier in Indy, that a place that had sort of a working press room. But when you're trying to do that from Slinger after the Slinger Nationals, and you're straddling the office guy's leg to use his phone and that sort of thing, it now seems pretty primitive.
the coupler, it sounded like a secret agent or a Mission Impossible episode.
Right. Yeah, Maxwell Smart,
Yeah.
kind of the shoe phone sort of thing. And yeah, now we complain when the internet doesn't work as well as we'd like, and we don't get, things don't happen instantaneously. Well, some nights they almost didn't used to happen at all. So
How would you get pictures from an event?
wow. I guess then it was all pretty much wire service stuff. If we were, gosh, I'm trying to think, if I was at, if I would have been to Beaver Dam or something. I think we might have had a photographer at Slinger once or twice while I worked. Not much. And literally you drove back to Milwaukee and swooped the film by hand and made prints. I remember I did something in those early days, I think when I was in Iron Mountain. And I had to get the film to the bus station at the local Cav Diner or whatever it was. Get the film to the bus station by 10:30 and get it on Badger bus so that it would get back to Milwaukee in the morning, or something silly like that. But yeah, the wire services did move photos kind of like very similar to fax, just higher resolution, that sort of thing. God, you guys are reminding me just how damn old I am, how long I've done this stuff. I guess that makes me appreciate more where we are now, right? Though that's
Right.
what you do.
So, Dave, is there a story that just really busted you up, but at the time you weren't really able to tell it, but you might be able to tell it now that time has passed?
There's 2 issues here. The biggest is I can't remember anything. No, I really can't think of any like great untold stories that I have from, somebody who's now out of the business, and it doesn't matter business wise, or, I don't have any great hidden Kulwicki stories that, now 30 years later we can tell. And I just, no, I wish I did, because that would make for much better viewing than me sitting here babbling.
Yeah, Jacqueline was sure hoping for some story of the statute of limitations is expired and you can now.
It'd have to be really, really good for me to remember it, because I don't remember half the crap I wrote last year. So
That is so funny. So tell us a story, though, that maybe kind of changed the trajectory of your life, whether it was with work or just life in general, a story that changed the trajectory of your life and how you adapted.
wow, this is deep. I'm not sure I signed up for this deep. I really, boy, put me on the spot. And I had a few extra minutes to think about it, had I known. Wow.
Like, were you in the right spot at the right time?
I feel like I've been in more wrong spots than
Well, say more about that.
no, just like missing stuff,
How did you and your wife meet?
This is the second time around for both of us, introduced by a mutual friend from way back. She's been Kelly has been amazing in supporting me doing all this weird stuff and not making a big deal out of it when I spend money out of my own pocket to cover the Indy 500 every year, and not not worrying that I'm gone for whatever 5 days on a whim to go to spring training and drink beer and watch the Daytona 500 with Todd, bailing in Arizona. So I really, in the classic racing world of I have to thank my sponsors. I got to thank her because she sure has made this a lot easier. And we got together. We got married in '08, I think. So I can't exactly do the math. Well, we've been married for 50 years, 17, 17, and 16. 17 to other people, and then 16 to each other. So she's really seen everything change. We didn't get together necessarily at the peak, but I was certainly doing a lot more traveling, being on the road, going to national things than I do now. And she probably saw me complaining a ton and and all those things. So, that's been good for sure.
Nice.
She understands. She's also a really, really good copy editor, because we have gotten, as our numbers have thinned, we have far and far fewer backstops, people that catch mistakes. And I probably won't do it on Slinger Nationals at 2:30 in the morning when we're finally getting out of tech and the winter's different. I won't wake her up to read that story, but she's saved me a lot of embarrassment over the year. Oh my gosh, I can't. Yeah, it's been as important to saving my butt. She's done as much to save my butt as I've done to get in trouble in the first place. So,
That's pretty cool to have that kind of a partnership with what you do.
well,
What is her
yeah,
day job?
she's an insurance agent.
Okay.
So yeah, she's the best copy editing insurance agent I know. Not
That's pretty cool. So who were some of your mentors as you were getting started?
Boy, Phil Cash, who was the Sentinel's motorsports guy when I was a part-timer there at the Sentinel, in college. He really, I didn't do a lot of racing, but when I got out of when I got to the times when I wasn't answering the phone, taking bowling scores or whatever, doing updating the standings or the brewer averages, the few times I did get out for racing to help cover racing, he pushed for that and he helped me. He was really, he understood where I was coming from and pushed for me to get opportunities and helped me a lot. And this is horrible. I don't want. This is going to sound awful, but I would have never got here without him because Phil helped me a lot to set me up to be able to do the job, and B, he died, and I was his replacement. So, he was a good guy and really, really helped me, get ready to come back and take this job and do this. And he also introduced me to a lot of really good people. One of the first was Mike Harris, the long time motorsports writer from the Associated Press, who grew up in Madison. And Mike was just had a ton of knowledge, and I was, like Wisconsin, so there's a natural, and he's a real outgoing guy. Gosh, there's just so many people. That's one of the things I found too, is that even if we're not always on the same page, people in racing seem to tend to be fairly helpful and generally want the same things. It's a sport that doesn't get the notice that the NFL or Major League Baseball or big time college football or the NBA. We're never going to be at that. So even if I'm trying to write a story that some PR person isn't, it's not exactly the way they'd want to see it. We are all pulling for the same thing. We all want interesting stories on the sport that, in my case, helps attract readers. In their case, helps attract eyeballs to the sport. So there are just so many people over the years. I mean, PR people who've been tremendously helpful, and other reporters. Honestly, gosh, I'm trying to think of anyone who was just a pain in the ass, and I can't. I can't think of anyone who wasn't at least a little helpful. And I got to say that when you look at sort of my career, I've been blessed to have a lot of Wisconsin racers do exceptionally well. Just really, really be good on the national stage. And I used to I joked with Matt Kenseth for years that he needed to hang on because I was kind of counting on it. He was my meal ticket. Well, of course, he was able to retire a little earlier than I'll be able to. But thankfully, you get guys like Ty Majeski come along and give me hope for the future. And there have been so many great, beyond the PR people that, you work maybe more closely with. You think about, Kulwicki was a little bit tricky sometimes, but deep down, when you got him out of the plugged in mode, great guy, very helpful. I remember, and maybe this answers an earlier question, or maybe I've just been rambling so much that I'm finally getting to the question at hand. But I remember how helpful Jim Sauter was. I could explain to him, that was very early in my career, 1990, 91, 92, something like that. I don't have many questions or many conversations with Toby, but I always remind him that I don't know Jack, and it's people like him who help me get the knowledge to at least not look like a moron. And really, some days that's a big win. But the most important thing you can know is what you don't know, right? So I think back to a guy like Jim Sauter, who probably spent 5 minutes explaining the concept of wedge to me, till I finally started to grasp. And so many guys like of that era who were so good. Obviously got to, spend how many years covering Bickle through his, monster short track seasons to his various attempts in NASCAR to his retirement and his unretirement and his retirement and his, and wherever we exactly are on that, I'm not sure. Travis Quapple won a truck championship on my watch. Ted Musgrave won a truck championship on my watch. Now Ty has won a truck championship on my watch. So to have those opportunities, to have that many people that, my readers have a particular interest in and have them do well has just been really cool. And, think on on the IndyCar side, I mean, Arie Luyendyk won the first Indy 500 I covered. Well, he was recently had lived in settled in Pewaukee. So that was there. And Ralph Wilkie, owned what was left of Leader Card Racers. Well, that was in Milwaukee. So it wasn't just on the stock car side either that I was really fortunate to have people to cover who were successful and who, my readers naturally cared about. So
Yeah.
it's and again, even as I add to that, the list, I'm not coming up with anybody who was just not fun, just like I can't really think of anyone I've had to work closely with who wasn't, maybe not always the easiest person to deal with.
What about bailing?
What's that?
What about bailing?
Hey, we travel well together, we joked, and because I did go out there for spring training, we joked that I have spent more Valentine's days with him than I have with either of my wives. So,
That's funny.
I mean, either individually, not collectively, but yeah, we spent, a lot of those. We do travel well together. So, and it's important when you're, especially, I've done, one of the things I'm proud of is I've done a lot of things spending money like it was my own that bought me a lot of leeway, bro. You know, give me a long leash to do more than if I would have been trying to get the company to pick up everything, and that meant, you know, rooming with Todd and rooming with Russ Lake and
Mm.
driving places and, you know, doing things on the cheap and, you know, eating whatever, you know, gas station sandwiches, just to keep the budget down so that I could do more. And I'm think I'm fairly low maintenance. Maybe if you ask Todd what kind of roommate on the road I am, he'd have a different answer. But he did invite me back, so
There you go.
I can't be that bad. Yeah.
So, as a member of the media, sometimes you get little trinkets or little mementos whenever you're at a place. What is one of the coolest things you ever received as like a little trinket or something at an event?
I and Dan mentioned it earlier, sitting right up behind me there. It's just one of those. I haven't kept a lot. Well, first of all, I mean, there's some ethical issues. You know, I can't be getting bought off by everybody who comes along. You know, you need to cover people fairly. If you're taking stuff, you know, you can't reasonably do that, or at the very least, people don't believe that you can do that. But the Garfield in the Richard Petty, you know, in the hat was a gosh, it's got to be early '90s thing that Petty Enterprises must have done with the company that syndicates Garfield or whatever. So it's just a 8x10, 8x12 caricature, you know, cartoon, you know, Garfield in the cowboy, in the beautifully adorned, the weird feathers, a Richard Petty style that's signed by the cartoonist and by the king. That's one. And honestly, see if I can get this without knocking anything over. I did a weird thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. For a while, we were doing these just real shorts, you know, couple question things. And Nancy Cartwright, who's the voice of Bart Simpson, was doing some, I don't know if it was like late model stuff. She was racing a little bit out in wherever in California, and I just did a real 5 or 8 minute interview with her on that topic, and the people sent me that. So it's there. It's just weird, you know. It's just a weird thing that not many other people have, you know.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take up much space, which helps because you.
There you go.
I mean, I think I probably have a 30-year-old can of Pringles or something with Daytona 500 trivia questions. Stuff I'm sure you've been through it. You move, you empty boxes, you go, Christ, why did I keep this? What was I thinking? What good can this possibly do me? And sure enough, it just got put in a different box in a different place in a different house for the most part. But yeah, as far as, you know, cool things, some of them are right here.
That's awesome. What do you get a lot of leeway with what you choose to write about? Or do they tell you this is what we need you to cover?
I got a ton of leeway.
That's awesome.
It is, and it's a lot. I hopefully I don't. Well, if I made a lot of mistakes in my choices, I wouldn't get a lot of leeway, right? And certainly there are some things that are kind of funneled my way because they fit the things I do. You know, the Berkey stuff I didn't set out to do for the 50th Birkebeiner last year, but they were like, "Yeah, you do a pretty good job on this. Maybe you can do it." And it was great. It was one of the most fun things I've done. Period. The thing was in a high school football season with coaches and administrators talking about what winning a high school football championship does for the school and the community and whatnot. It wasn't something that I necessarily set out to do. It was pushed my way, but that was also a lot of fun. I got to talk to some real legends of Wisconsin high school football coaching. But so much of it is, it's something that's got me curious, whether it's name, image, and likeness stuff on college athletics or whatnot. I say, what do you guys think about this? Is this stepping on anyone's toes? No, great. Well, I'll do it. On the racing stuff, it's all, it's got to attract some level of readership. So it either needs to be naturally interesting or it's got to be so good that people become interested in it. But yeah, I kind of I don't want to say set my schedule, but I've done beginning of the year or end of the previous year thing of list of, we need to do IndyCar at Road America and the mile. We need to do IMSA at Road America. We need to do Slinger Nationals. We need to do, whatever, the Stars stuff, Midwest Tour stuff, maybe, just sort of try to put together a calendar of what I think we should do. And if at all possible, we do all the stuff we got to do. And hopefully we do most of the stuff that I think we should do. So they've given me, that's one of the things that 35 years of being a fairly good boy have earned me. I don't get a lot of raises anymore, but get a lot of leeway to do fun stuff. And honestly, if you're not doing it, nobody's doing this to make a ton of money. You're doing it because it's interesting, because you get to meet neat people, because you get to ask questions about stuff you want to understand and you think other people may too.
Yeah.
So,
What would you be doing if you were not writing or taking photographs? What do you think you would have been doing for a living?
If I knew that, I'd have been doing it 10 years ago. I have not figured out what I want to do when I grow up, which is a rough thing to say at this point in life because maybe I'm not gonna grow up. It's weird. I mean, obviously, some of the skills, critical thinking, that sort of stuff does translate. The ability to write does translate. But you think of, absolute direct correlations. No idea. Would I be working in a communications office somewhere? Maybe, trying to tell the story of the university or the team or the company or whoever. Maybe that seems like, in some ways, that doesn't even seem all that different from doing. It's just, it would always be on one thing, and it would, who I'm getting paid by, right? So you get a lot less leeway in that regard. But yeah, if I had there's so many things I wouldn't be any good at probably that that it's hard to imagine what else I would do that I would do well at and enjoy doing. That's because, again, that's a big part of it. No, what would I be doing? Yeah, that's it. I mean, hey,
that's a good sign that you've landed where you should be.
Yeah, right. My wife would tell you that I can cook, so maybe I would go back to my 16-year-old roots working in the restaurant kitchen, right? And a little less washing dishes and a little bit more cooking. But no, I'm too old to make that move. I couldn't do 8 hours on my feet anymore. That's for sure.
Do you do your own laundry too, Dave?
Do I do my own laundry?
I'm just checking because if you cook and you do your own laundry, I know exactly why Kelly really loves you.
No, she does not let me do laundry. She rarely lets me do laundry. Sometimes I'll sneak in a load of. See, the difference is, she's real particular about these things. my idea, what kind of load is this? Well, this would be a load of dirties. That's how you sort laundry: clean, dirty. After that, then you can start being picky if you want. But if it's dirty, it needs to be washed. We'll throw it in there and see what happens. So you can see why she may not. That may not.
I definitely do see that.
Yeah, top
Have
priority.
you ever raced in like a media race? I feel like you have.
I have. It's been a long time. My first one, I think. Well, there might have been a go-kart thing in there back in when we were all young. Treda would know the day because A, he was in it, and B, he knows stuff like that. But the one I can think of, the first car, full size car race, was whatever the lowest division at Hales Corners was. We weren't even street stocks. I don't know what they were beat to crap. I mean, just awful. And I think I had I don't even want to guess whose car, or what it was, but there must have been about 6 of us. And as I recall, maybe it started to rain or something? The track was slick, and there must have been maybe 6 of us in it, something like that. And I finished ahead of the Trophy Queen and Dan Margetta, who spun out. That's my recollection of this race. Dan may have different. Again, so many people have better memories. And I did you're gonna find a theme here. I did a couple of media, celeb races at Slinger, and the one with Gilbert Brown. I think Gilbert won that one, to no one's surprise. And I don't remember who was in the other one, but I would every once in a while. Now, it's been a long time since I reminded him, and maybe I should shoot him a text right now. I believe I may have beaten 2 or 3 people, one of them being Lance Allen, who spun on the backstretch and just about took me out, but I deftly weaved my way through and finished ahead of him.
That's impressive.
Or lucky, something like that. Yeah, I would not. You asked before about things I would be doing if I were not writing about racing. Actually, racing would not be one either, because I would have wiped. That career would have been really, really short. I'm not going to pretend to be any good. I'm not shy about saying I had some fun doing it.
That's cool. Who would you want to do an article about or an interview with that you have not yet been able to do?
Wow. Honestly, I can't think of anyone, which means I need help. It means no. Bear with me on this. This is going to be. You may find this hard to believe, but this is going to be another long answer. I have had, over time, had the opportunity to ask questions of everyone from Michael Schumacher and down to the guy, the 80-year-old guy who was running the midget at Angel Park. So there's so many in between. So there's not a lot. As a matter of fact, this is really weird story. A group of us were out one of the bars downtown after work on a Friday night or whatever, stop for a beer. And some drunk guy just, struck up a conversation, and that must have been week after U.S. Grand Prix. Hey, what are you guys doing? That kind of stuff. And somehow you got to, that I had been to the Formula One race. And he's like, oh my God, you asked the question, Michael Schumacher? Yes, I did. I asked one question in a press conference. Total stranger hugging on me at a bar. Wow. So the point of all that is, I can't really think of anyone who really, really have urge to talk about, but I am open to ideas because everyone who's watching this knows something or someone that I don't. So the only way I can find out about some of that or most of that stuff is if somebody tells me. So if you have an idea, if you know of someone or something that would be interesting, let me know. That would help. Because we may or may not agree. People might throw out 20 ideas and I might go, yeah, to 19 of them, but maybe there's that 20th. And I go, oh yeah, I can see how I would go on this and I can see how other people would be interested if you only got to know this person or whatever, this story. So yeah, I don't really have anyone off the top of my head, but I would love to have a list this season from people of ideas.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things, you were asking earlier about how to stay relevant basically in this changing media market. I think one of the things that's sort of being pushed these days is interaction. And I feel like I've been pretty good if somebody stops me at the track and says, hey, I, I got a lousy memory and I'm not good with connecting faces and names, but I certainly want to say hi. And, I'm sorry if I didn't remember you from 3 months ago when we did the same dance, but the point is I'm always happy to see people. Now we're kind of being, I'm always happy to answer emails or whatnot. I think one of the things we'd like to do this year is get me, face to face in front of people more often, because if you know me, you might be a little more interested in what I have to say, or you might be a little bit more aware of something I've written because oh yeah, I met him. He was not a bad guy. So, that's that's kind of the goal. A goal for this year is to get in front of people and let them know that kind of like what we're doing now, only more in person, more often, to get people to know me a little bit, and also it's interactive. Help me out. Let me know what you know that I don't, that others might want to.
How should people get in touch with you if they want to share something with you?
The easiest way, the easiest way is via email. D Kallmann, 2 L's, 2 N's, at journalsentinel.com, all run together, Journal Sentinel. If you go to JS Online and search for me, I think if you click on a byline, you will get an email address, or it may even open up an email for you. So, yeah, shoot me a line. I will do my best. Will I be 100%? No. I know me. It doesn't happen. Things slip through the cracks. I apologize. I don't mean for that to happen, but I've also come to know that it does, probably a little too often. But
we're all human.
That's the easiest. That's the best way. Then what you can do is you come back in 2 months. Remember when you said you were going to do this, and then I can search for it and find it. Because that's why I have 37,000 emails in my in basket, because that's probably makes up 10 or 20 of them. But
that's a lot of email.
It is. I should really get rid of 20 or 25,000 of them, probably.
Oh my goodness. Well, Dave, we appreciate you taking some time to chat with us.
My
Dan,
pleasure.
did you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. Enjoyed talking to Dave.
Yeah, you're a good guy, Dave, and I appreciate your patience as we were getting everything ready here tonight.
No worries. I'm glad to do it, and thank you. I mean, I as I said when we were setting this thing up, I mean, you said you like it to be about the characters. I feel like you're maybe overselling me a bit, but that coincides with my approach. I want it, introduce people to the characters and let them get to know the people who make this sport so much fun. So for you to think that I fit in that's thumbs up. That works really well. So I appreciate
You
it.
do. Thank you so much, Dave.
You're welcome.